It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here today.
Hi, I'm Rupha Ramani and you're watching Firstpost. Now, sport is but a contest between two sides. But as we will explore in our show today, there are different kinds of opponents. There are two stories we will be bringing to you today with rebellion at the heart of it. One is occurring over in Australia, where a player is raging a battle he seems to be losing against the International Cricket Council. And the other is a revolt that has pitted a few of the Afghanistan players against their very own board. It's a spicy battle that's gaining some momentum the world over. And we'll get our perspective on this developing issue. And as it is the whole of this week, another 2023 superstar will be featured today, so stay tuned for that. But first, all the headlines from around the world in Sports 360. We'll start with cricket. Batter David Warner has become the second highest run scorer for Australia in international cricket. Warner achieved this milestone during the Boxing Day Test match that started against Pakistan today. Warner has now scored over 18,000 runs. He trails Ricky Ponting, who has scored over 27,000 runs in his international career. Indian spinner Ravichandran Ashwin is 11 wickets away from entering the elite club of 500 Test wicket. Ashwin is currently playing in India's Boxing Day Test against South Africa that also, of course, started today. If Ashwin achieves the milestone, he will become only the second Indian bowler after Anil Kumble to reach that milestone. In football, FIFA has threatened to ban Brazil from international competitions. This includes the men and women's national team and clubs. FIFA says the suspension would happen if Brazil holds swift elections to replace the football body's president. FIFA added that any political meddling would result in an instant ban of all the Brazilian teams. In tennis, world number one Novak Djokovic will take to the court for the final time this year. He'll play in a friendly exhibition match against world number two Carlos Alcaraz. The exhibition match will be played in Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh, tomorrow. Russian and Belarusian equestrian athletes will not be allowed to take part in Paris 2024 Olympics. The equestrian body says that even if the athletes are neutrals, they will not be given a platform to compete. The ruling comes in contradiction to the International Olympic Committee, which allowed Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete as neutrals. Now, if you've been following us for a while, then you know about the spillover effects that politics has on sports. If you don't know what we're referring to today, it's about the war in Gaza and the political divide it is creating. And sports too has been in the thick of it. Players and athletes are speaking up against the war in Gaza. This includes Australian batter Usman Khawaja. It all started when Khawaja first wore shoes with a message for peace during a net session. After that, the International Cricket Council, or the ICC, pulled up Khawaja and told him not to display political messages. The ICC says that such messages breach their dress code. The ICC does not allow political, religious or racial messages on cricket kits and uniforms. Khawaja said he did nothing wrong and the message was simply being linked to Gaza when he was standing up for humanity. When Australia took on Pakistan in the first test match, Khawaja was seen on the field wearing a black armband, which he eventually took down, but he was charged by the ICC for the armband and highlighting a political cause without their approval. Khawaja, of course, says that he wore the armband as a personal message. The ICC has fined Khawaja for the black armband, calling it a breach of their dress code. A few days later, the Aussie was again in the spotlight. During a net session, Khawaja was seen sporting stickers of dove birds on his shoes and his kit. Khawaja then approached the ICC to allow him to use those stickers. The permission was not granted. Khawaja says he will fight the ICC over this. The first thing that the Australian batter has done is on his social media. Khawaja shared a video which showed pictures of other cricketers who had stickers on their kits. The video showed religious messages that other cricketers have sported on their cricket bats. The song that played in the background was Kanye West's Can't Tell Me Nothing, almost a dig from Khawaja at the ICC that they shouldn't be telling him to tone down his own messaging when they aren't or haven't done that with some of the other cricketers. And Khawaja is getting a lot of mixed reactions for this. Captain Pat Cummins has given his full support. South African spinner Tabraiz Shamsi also took to social media to support Khawaja. But some fans are questioning Khawaja. They are urging him to focus on the game and not political messaging. Fans are saying that Khawaja is pushing his own agenda. But the Aussie batter has repeatedly said that he is standing up for humanity and doesn't have any political agendas.
I don't have any agendas other than trying to shine a light on what I feel really passionately, really strongly about. I'm trying to do it in the most respectful way as possible. What I wrote in my shoes was really, I thought about it for a while what I was going to write. I made sure that I didn't want to segregate different parts of the population, religious beliefs, communities, hence why I've kept religion out of this. I want it to be really broad and open-minded speaking because I'm talking about humanitarian issues. I'm talking about Article 1 of the Unified Declaration of Human Rights. That is literally the crux of it. The reason I'm doing it is because it hit me hard. You know, I told Nick literally just this morning that when I'm looking at my Instagram and I'm seeing kids, innocent kids, videos of them dying, passing away, that's what's hit me the hardest.
But it's not just cricket and Khawaja who are dividing fans. Football is also seeing a political divide. The most recent was Liverpool striker Mo Salah. He took to social media on Christmas Day with a special message showing a black and white Christmas tree for peace in Gaza. Salah said that he shares the pain with the people of Gaza. He also urged his supporters to not get used to the suffering of people. A lot of the fans loved the Christmas message, but of course some didn't. A few even pointed out that Salah never condemned the Hamas terror attacks on Israel on the 7th of October. Are players taking a political stance? We'll let you decide, but we're here for sports and we'll decode that for you. What do these political messages mean for sports? There's a reason that sports have governing bodies. They have a set of rules and regulations to keep things in order. The first is that teams and players have to abide by certain dress codes. These are, of course, your uniforms, the kits, everything has to be the same as your teammate. And any kind of messaging that is not approved by the governing body is not encouraged to be used on the field of play. The reason is simple. If every player starts displaying messages for causes that he or she feels towards, then where will this end? It will just break the spirit of sports on the field. Players should stick to what they know best. And when they are off the field, they are, of course, entitled to display their opinions. The pitch should remain the sanctum sanctorum. What Khawaja has done, of course, through his latest post is highlight a disparity in treatment, a rule that seems to be different for different players. His latest retort is, fine, you want me to play by the rules, then let that be the same for all. Going by what his first words on his shoes were, all humans are equal. Now, the age-old debate of club versus country had sparked off yet again. We've seen it happen in football, but here, though, club trumps country. There's a line that footballers never cross, and the World Cup is the holy grail. So anything in between is immaterial. In cricket, that debate is more intense. Why? The contests between countries were always there, taking shape and a rivalry of its own. And with the boom of T20 cricket in 2007, the club scene has skyrocketed. T20 leagues have sprouted just about everywhere across the globe, post-IPL or the Indian Premier League, the Big Bash League in Australia, the Caribbean League, the Pakistan Super League, Bangladesh Premier League, and much more. There's more to follow for sure. Even as BCCI fiercely continues to protect the magnitude and significance of an Indian Premier League, cricketers have realized the larger importance of T20 cricket. Big bucks, quick cricket, and a longer shelf life. Why are we talking about this now, though? Well, because of a latest row that has now erupted between three key Afghanistan players and young players and the cricket board of their country. The players in question, Mujeeb Ur Rahman, Naveen and Farooqi, are in a standoff with their board. What's happened here? Now, they earlier requested the board to release them from their central contracts, and this was the response from their board.
The Afghanistan Cricket Board has decided to delay the 2024 annual central contracts for national players Mujeeb Ur Rahman, Fazalhaq Farooqi and Naveen Mureed. Additionally, the board has opted not to grant them no objection certificates for the next 2 years following their intention to be released from their annual central contracts. The decision by Afghanistan Cricket Board is made with a focus on national priorities, aligned with the ACB's core values and principles. It highlights the necessity for every player to maintain the ACB's principles and prioritize the country's interests above their personal ones.
Let's understand the why first. The players obviously want to play for leagues all over the world. That's why the request. We saw it happening just a month earlier when the West Indian players Nicholas Pooran, Jason Holder and Kyle Myers refused central contracts to play their leagues. All three are part of the IPL setup, of course. Same goes with the Afghanistan players in question. Mujeeb was recently picked up by Kolkata Knight Riders franchise for $241,000 and is with his BBL side, Melbourne Renegades. Apart from that, he's obviously featured in many leagues. Naveen ul Haq, who plays for the Lucknow franchise in the IPL, is also a globetrotter when it comes to leagues. So too Fazalhaq Farooqi. He's been retained by the Hyderabad IPL franchise and is also someone who's very, very prevalent in many leagues the world over. He also, of course, played the T20 League, but we'll speak about that another time. These cricketers are in high demand and they're T20 specialists. And they were also part of Afghanistan's most successful ODI World Cup campaign just a couple of months ago. So for them to pick clubs over country is a huge deal. So who is wrong and where does this lapse lie? Why is this increasingly becoming a trend that could gain some momentum? Let's look at the reasons for this. Afghanistan as a country is in a bit of a flux. They have the talent and the new crop of youngsters coming up, including these three players who are revolting, but are very promising. There is hardly any cricket in Afghanistan though. For any country to establish itself and for cricketers to establish themselves, you need cricket in the country. By that, I mean tournaments, build a domestic structure, host other countries, basically build a cricket ecosystem and by that extension, a cricketing culture. Afghanistan has very little of that. Since the Taliban takeover, this is what has happened. Players have fled the country, with many taking refuge in the UAE and making that their new home. Money is an issue with sponsors having pulled out. They train outside and a lot of them train in India. They don't host international teams, as we mentioned. Though the men's cricket team is still fighting on, women's cricket has pretty much been snuffed out. The ICC has in fact contemplated cancelling membership due to their stance on women's cricket. The big established players like Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi, to name a few, have been exempted from preparatory camps and training due to their commitments. So the gap between cricket and the cricketers is wider. They come in for the big tournaments and the series, but how regularly is that? Which leads me to reason number 2. Afghanistan's national team doesn't play enough cricket in a year. They don't tour enough. A small example, this year they've only played 21 days, 11 T20 internationals and a single test match. Now compare that with a team like India, just so you get the picture. India has played 35 one-day internationals, 23 T20 internationals and 7 test matches. Reason number 3, why? Money, of course. Asadullah, a former selector of the ACB, spoke to a cricket website earlier this year saying, and I quote, "The passion for the game has increased, but the flow of money has started to dry up. Corporate sponsors for the game have come down hard. ICC funds are not coming directly, hence money is an issue. ACB is still surviving, but not sure how long it can be sustained." Now, what he's referring to are some instances where the ICC, using the revenue share that is due to Afghanistan, has paid on behalf of the ACB. So in the midst of all this, leagues and the money it offers is the oasis for so many of these youngsters who are able to set aside country for clubs. Now I come back to the question I started with, which is, where does the fault lie? Is it with the system? Is it with circumstances that have pushed these cricketers to take this choice? Or is it with the cricketers themselves who aren't seeing the bigger or more selfless picture? I would say it's a bit of everything. For a cricketer to choose country, there are expectations from the country, and when that doesn't match up, they look the other way. Can these be mended? With the way cricket is transforming so rapidly, that seemingly looks impossible at this point. Now, as we look back at the year that has been, motorsports has been one of the most popular and watched events, and that goes for both Formula 1 racing as well as MotoGP. In fact, it was a great year for fans in India, with MotoGP holding its first ever circuit near the capital city of Delhi. We all remember Marco Bezzecchi of Ducati winning in India, and MotoGP has promised to return next year as well. But what fans are truly craving for is Formula 1, the race between the fastest automobiles on earth. But in 2023, Formula One was largely a one-man show. Red Bull's Max Verstappen swept the tracks, leaving everyone behind in his trail. Verstappen broke multiple records this year. He ended the racing season on a winning streak. Let's relive Verstappen and, by that extension, Red Bull's racing prowess. They were a force to reckon with in the year 2023.
If you're a Formula One fan, speed, cornering and photo finishes must excite you. Because every F1 race always has jostles and tussles between the racers. This year, there were many close finishes. Racers were constantly trying to one-up each other to decide who would finish second and third. That's right, because there was one racer who just never let go of the number one spot. We're talking about Red Bull's Max Verstappen. The 26-year-old lit fire to the tracks. Throughout the season, there was Verstappen and then everyone else. It seemed like he almost did not have any competition. So how big was 2023 for Verstappen and Red Bull? Verstappen was crowned world champion this year. He ended the season with 19 victories off the 22 circuits he raced on. Verstappen broke at least 18 F1 records this year. We won't touch on all of them, but here are the biggest ones. Verstappen had 19 wins in 2023, the most an F1 racer has ever had in a season. His win rate was over 85%. He had the most number of back-to-back wins with 10 circuits. Out of the 22 races that Verstappen took part in, he had 21 podium finishes. He also had the highest F1 score in history with 575 points. These were just some of the big records that Verstappen broke. In addition, he became the first F1 racer to win 3 times in a single country. This was after he won 3 circuits in the US, in Miami, Austin and Vegas. Statistically, Verstappen had the greatest Formula One season in the sport's history. So how did Verstappen do it, and will he continue his monstrosity next year? Verstappen started racing at a very early age, and he got the knack of racing from his parents. At the age of 4, he was driving racing go-karts. By 7, he had already participated in a go-karting race. In 2015, he made his F1 debut, and within a year, he joined Red Bull Racing. It's almost like he was made for racing, and Verstappen has got the mindset of a winner. He knows that he had one of the most phenomenal seasons in racing history, but Verstappen says he can do better.
I don't think, you can talk about percentages or whatever, but for sure there are always, things that we can do better. We know that. Of course, the car has been very, very dominant, but we've also, seen a few, let's say, weaknesses in the car, which I think we can do better, and that's what we're of course working on for next year.
And he's already raring to go in 2024. He says that there's always some room for improvement and that the competition will eventually catch up.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, of course, it can't be much better than what we have achieved. But I think it's not always about, trying to win 20 races. It's also about just trying to find improvements within yourself, within the car. And if that means next year, we have improved the car and we can fight for the championship again, but you only win 10 races, that's also fine, It's just been also that, the competition around us has been quite up and down. One weekend it was this team, then the other week it was another team. So I expect next year, people are learning a lot with this new regulation as well, that it naturally will be, quite a bit closer.
Will Verstappen's dominance continue next year? Well, it's a question that will only be answered on the tracks. But that shouldn't mean that 2023 is forgotten. Because what Verstappen and Red Bull did was nothing short of extraordinary. We might just be witnessing not only one of the greatest to ever sit behind the F1 wheel, but also a partnership that has struck gold all through the year.
Now we have something super special to end the show with. The saying, of course, is dog is our best friend, but a cat seems to be reiterating just that. This one is Ollie, the cat that braves the seas. He's part of the Sylph 6 boat crew that is taking part in a sailing race. After juggling with high tide and seasickness, Ollie is now an experienced sailor. For our last serve, here's Ollie, the first cat to take part in the Sydney-Hobart sailing race. That about does it here on Firstpost. We'll, of course, join you again around the same time, 7 p.m. for more. But for now, though, take care. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome.